In Europe, against the backdrop of Russia's war against Ukraine and ongoing negotiations, it seems to me that people are gradually losing their minds when it comes to their stance toward Moscow. Well, that's how it looks at first glance if we look at the latest news. The Kremlin has confirmed that France has resumed dialogue with Moscow, and French President Emmanuel Macron stated that he simply cannot do otherwise. You need to talk to Putin, so you need to talk. At the same time, the European Commission announced that Europe is preparing a list of concessions that Russia must make to end the war and resume dialogue. When these concessions will be announced is unknown, but at the same time, the European Union recently presented a proposal for a new package of anti-Russian sanctions. This is already the 20th package, and this package was supposed to significantly reduce the Kremlin's income from oil sales. The European Union wants to replace restrictions on the price of Russian oil with a ban on providing services necessary for transporting fuel. This could effectively block Russian tankers from the Black and Baltic Seas. But at the last moment, 2 European countries opposed it, saying that they would lose revenue themselves. And supposedly this is too harsh a step against the Russian aggressor. So what is happening in Europe, especially as Lavrov is already threatening Europe with war? Let's discuss this together. My name is Pechiy. Let's talk about this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, recently, the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, stated that Moscow will respond with all available means in the event of an attack from Europe. Yes, the Kremlin is threatening Europe with war, but is disguising it as a response. Well, as you remember, according to the Kremlin's logic, it wasn't Russia that attacked Ukraine, but rather Ukraine attacked Russia, and Russia was forced to defend itself. And now Sergei Lavrov declares, and I quote, "If suddenly Europe, after making its threats to prepare for war against us, carries them out and begins to attack the Russian Federation, President Putin said, this will not be a special military operation on our part, it will be a full-scale military response with all the means at our disposal. Russia itself is not going to attack Europe. We have absolutely no need for that." Let me remind you, this same Sergei Lavrov said the same thing about Ukraine at the beginning of 2022. He assured everyone that Russia was not going to attack Ukraine, but they did. And finally, it has become clear exactly how Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary is earning his little paycheck from the Kremlin. The thing is, after this statement by Lavrov, all Russian propagandists are now reminding everyone exactly what. European leader Viktor Orban said that European leaders intend to prepare for a possible war with Russia by 2030, switching to a wartime economy. And so, it would seem that after all this, it's time for Europe to finally hit back at that brazen Russian face, and now Europe has made up its mind. The European Union recently presented a proposal for a new package of anti-Russian sanctions, but that's where it all stopped. Greece and Malta became the main obstacles to the European Union's proposal to replace the price cap on Russian oil with a ban on providing services necessary for transporting oil. Greece and Malta expressed concerns that such a change could affect the European shipping industry and energy prices. And Greece and Malta requested clarification regarding proposals to impose sanctions on foreign ports for handling cargo of Russian oil, and strengthening oversight of ship sellers to reduce the number of tankers that end up in Moscow's shadow fleet. Well, as they say, a guilty conscience betrays itself, so here Greece and Malta have exposed themselves a bit. Let me remind you, last week the European Commission proposed replacing the existing price cap on Russian oil with a ban on installation. This proposal, which will hit insurance and transport companies, reflects the difficulties in using the price cap to significantly reduce Moscow's oil revenues. The new proposal is a central element of the 20th package of European Union sanctions against Moscow for its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The implementation of the new proposal will also depend on the support of the G7 countries, which jointly introduced this price cap at the end of 2022. But so far, the United States hasn't taken any position on this. Should this be replaced or not? At the same time, the new European Union sanctions package includes a proposal to introduce restrictions against several companies in China and other countries that supply Russia with key components for its military industry. This package is also aimed at cryptocurrency operators and a small number of banks in Central Asia and Laos that help Moscow circumvent sanctions. In addition, the European Union has proposed for the first time to use its anti-circumvention tool, which will ban the export of machine tools and certain radio equipment to Kyrgyzstan. But now Germany is saying that they are concerned this could affect bilateral relations with Kyrgyzstan, and that relations with Kyrgyzstan are very important to them. Let's keep supplying them with machine tools and ignore them passing these on to the Russians. But that's not all. Today, the press secretary of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, announced that France and the Russian Federation have resumed contacts at the technical level, but Moscow does not yet see any willingness from Paris to organize a conversation between the two leaders. And later, the resumption of dialogue was confirmed by the French President Emmanuel Macron, who explained this by the new phase of the Russian-Ukrainian war. Next, I'll quote Macron. "We want to delegate these discussions to someone else, but our geographical position will not change. Whether we like Russia or not, no, it will remain here tomorrow as well." European leaders should actively participate in the peace process. The United States is assured that it is ready to help end the war, but it should not negotiate the terms of Ukraine's accession to the European Union. On behalf of the blog members, this is a matter of self-respect. Therefore, a resumption of dialogue between the European Union and Russia is needed, but it should be constructive and without pressure on Ukraine. On the one hand, Macron's desire is understandable, but he doesn't want to give up the entire dialogue with the Russians and Americans. But even more so when it comes to the European security architecture. However, Russia uses such contacts, even hints of these contacts, differently. Now the same Sergei Lavrov claims that Moscow supposedly has secret contacts with some European leaders. Why is this being done? To sow discord among Europeans themselves and possibly with Ukraine. Here's a quote. "I won't hide it. We have contacts with some of the European leaders. They call us and ask not to make these conversations public. Some of them even come here to Moscow and secretly make contact with us." At the same time, the statements of European leaders during such closed, confidential contacts are no different from what they say publicly. It's the same appeals. Let's end this and take action. But Europe has taken a hands-off, negative position, which is that Russia must suffer a strategic defeat. Their position is, Ukraine cannot lose, Russia cannot win, otherwise Europe will lose face. And everything they're doing now is to prevent disrupting the negotiations that seem to be emerging between us and the Americans. And now Ukrainian representatives are joining them as well. Well, it's important to note here that even according to Lavrov, the Europeans haven't changed their position in the meetings. Their stance is uncompromising. Russia absolutely cannot win, and that's clear. In this regard, I'm a bit reassured about Macron's team's contacts with the Russians. It's unlikely that anyone there would betray Ukraine. It's important to remember Europeans have their own interests, which should be considered too. But this game with sanctions, sometimes we impose them, sometimes we don't, and we count the money to see who will profit from it. That looks cynical. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support our YouTube channel with your donation or by subscribing. All the links and details are in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves, goodbye, and stay tuned for more.